You're listening to Every Day's a Saturday USMC Veteran Podcast.
Now introducing your host of Every Day's a Saturday USMC Veteran, the one-man show, Brian Roof.
What's going on, friends and fam? Thank you guys so much for joining me on another great day, another great interview. Can you believe we have made it to interview 80? I'm shocked. It's crazy that we're almost approaching 100 interviews. It is absolutely crazy. I've gotten to meet such amazing people with great stories and doing great things for our country still to this day. Our next guest I had found through a podcast guest, and I was very interested in hearing her story and things that she's got going on. She's a Navy veteran and a co-founder of Votrite. We're going to let her talk all about herself and give her a backstory about her. And this is going to be Angelica Kapsis. What's going on? How you doing?
Hello. So thank you very much for inviting me on the show. I appreciate it. And I'd be happy to tell you a little bit about my background and what led me to Votrite. So long story short, not that I can make it too short, but I graduated college when I was 16, and I was a firefighter at the time. And at 16 years old, even if you're a graduate from college, you're still 16, right? So we're still looking for things to do. We're not quite disciplined yet. And I was paired with a medic that was joining the Navy from Long Island, New York. And he said, I really want to be on the presidential detail. It's my all-time dream. He wanted to be this medic corpsman forever. And he said that he might have an opportunity to be meritoriously promoted, and then he could maybe sit with the president or be his presidential detail. So me, of course, I was around 20 years old, and I'm thinking, well, I apologize. I went to college when I was 16, graduated when I was 20. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, that sounds like a really good idea, and I would love to help you while I'm figuring out what I'm going to do. So I went right behind him, and we joined the Navy. And he got his promotion. He got the presidential detail. Initially, I was training for something in sort of that special operations field, and I ended up becoming a Seabee, which is a construction mechanic. And if anybody knows, because we're talking with Marine Corps, the coolest thing about the Seabees is that the Marines lead them into country, wherever it might be, without a border, without protection, and they are the primary source of protection while we build. And then we establish, ground there. So we work very closely, and it's really the coolest job ever if that's what you were doing. So
Seabees are absolutely amazing. I got to be a part of it and witness just like that when we deployed in 2003 over to the Middle East. The Seabees would come in and just put together amazing structures like that. You would just be like, gosh dang, we would leave and go somewhere, come back, and it'd be completely finished. And we're like, gosh dang, man. They'd be over there sitting there, with their blouses off, taking a break.
So confident. They don't mind to think. We were talking about what we do because, we're sitting around, we're thinking, we're watching everybody build when we're going on green deployments, and we're watching it takes 2-year turnaround to build your house at home. And they're all going, I can't believe they wouldn't employ us on the weekend. We'd be done in 3 days. It's the easiest thing we ever did. They're so confident about it, So that was my trajectory in the Navy. And then I got out somewhere just under 4 years I served. And then I went for a master's degree, and my favorite subject was forensic science. So I just jumped in and I did that. While I was doing that, I decided to take a role teaching special needs behaviors because it was in the area. I was in California and it was available, and it opened up this world for me that I did not know. And I would use the word ignorant, but I don't care for the connotation, but that's what I felt that I was. And then I entered this field and I learned this information, and I thought, wow. Well, now I know how to treat a lot of our population the right way. And we never knew that. And us, we're willing to serve our country. We're willing to take the ultimate sacrifice. But we didn't realize that we were only scratching the surface with who we might be, able to cater to, because we were missing those skills. And I was very pleased that I was able to gain those skills. And I spent about 10 years learning. And I was a supervisor, and I created my own business called Scorpion Fitness Centers, and it's not incorporated. It's an LLC. It's sort of a branch off. So I made it Scorpion Fitness, Long Island, a non-biased sort of viewpoint. And what we did was we encouraged people, adults and kids, to enroll in these fitness services that were designed to facilitate independence totally. So it was never a special needs fitness class. It was, you're going to be paired with somebody who's trained by professionals that went on to become Navy SEALs and whatever else they might be, because that's the form of physical training I was introduced to. And I'm going to discipline you the same way that they may have disciplined me into creating a human being that's compatible with us. And we're pretty elite people. And these guys did so well. And I love this story, so I'm going to tell it again. They did so well that we brought them to this outing at Botanical Gardens, and there was a commissioner in Long Island, and he pulls me aside because he knew I was Navy. He pulls me aside and he goes, so I know you brought these, I know we were planning on bringing ID kids, which means intellectually disabled, right? The former term, you understand. So he pulls me aside and he goes, I'm not mad, but aren't these the Navy SEALs that you brought? Isn't this part of your other team? He swore. He was not joking. He wasn't making anything, because they were standing at parade rest, or they were standing at rest, and they were saying, hello, ma'am, how are you doing? People with Down syndrome, people with, mental illness, things of that nature. So from that standpoint, I'm thinking, well, if we collectively, with all the training that I've had, can achieve this in that population who has never seen it before, it's never happened. The parents were blown away by the amount that their kid could finally do, and they could rest, because everybody's got their own stuff going on. What else could we contribute to? And my father, he invented and I co-founded Votrite, and he's been working on this project for a very long time. I mean, he's been all the way through, I think, the entire tour that these other vendors have been here, and he's been designing an electronic voting system, following very closely what was going on in the current climate, right? What sort of vulnerabilities were exposed, what sort of threats, and he was redesigning, revamping, ensuring that the electronic voting system would be impenetrable enough for the American democracy. And I took my expertise when I joined, and we had an expo in Louisiana, down south, and they have a disability advocates group, which is all people with disabilities, but they know how to represent themselves. They can make these, higher level choices, and they have their own check sheet that they created, and they went around everybody, including the current vendors, the people that we have going on here. And they checked off everything, and we won popular vote. And then I said, well, how about we order off a menu? Because I'm that guy. Out of every guy here, I am absolutely that guy. So they ordered off the menu. We went back and we revamped the program to a new design that met every criteria that these people asked. And you'd be very surprised at what this population asks for, because their primary objective is to become independent, to never be a burden on society. And and I know that we love that sort of thing. That is the best it gets in a human being, right? And we do the same thing with ourselves. No matter what level of functioning we started at, we never want to be a burden on others, and we're always willing to do enough so that we are reliable and others can rely on us. And they're the same way. And what they said to me was, we don't really need all these bells and whistles, all the, enhancements that attach our hands to the sort of process. This person in particular, she did not have use of her hands and legs. They weren't fully grown. So she appeared to be a quadriplegic, but she also appeared to be small, but she was obviously an adult. And she took a stylus, a tiny stylus, and she goes, could you extend this? It's enough for me. I need nothing else. I don't need any accommodation. I don't need any sip and puff, nothing like that. Just a longer stylus so I could reach my hand and I'll do it all independently myself. And I was blown away. I thought, well, now I have to listen, So we developed this inclusive voting system that really took to the people. We had the people vote on it. They chose off a menu. We made it for them. And of course, we're considering the act, the law, everything like that. We're aligned with all these guidelines that provide us a foundation for federal certification with something called the EAC, which I'll tell you about in a moment. But we really designed this thing based off the preference of the individual and not necessarily the instruction provided. And I think that's something very unique for us in our country, that we can just be real with each other. We can choose what we want, and then we get what we want done. And then we're as efficient as we really are, right? Instead of figuring out what a law states, right? And designing that, even though we of course are
trying to decipher what the law means too. I mean, sometimes
what
they
does that
really
mean for
write
our
it.
population? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times they write it in such a way that people just glimpse at it and don't read the entire thing, so they don't
Who knows
and
what it says?
the entirety of the law, right?
Yes. So that's really what's so exciting about it. And from that point, we've really just been prepared to move. I mean, we really would like to move for the November 2024 election, and we're currently shortly seeking funding to propel us in that direction. we have a few avenues of how we might do that. So I'll go into the design of the unit and how we would approve of it, as our population. But in the meantime, in terms of funding, in terms of getting us to that location, there are options. So we're considering transparency to the point that the voter could actually be part of our company. Coming up shortly, we're restructuring, and that will create transparency like we've never seen before. Right now, there are a lot of foreign vendors that are participating for approximately 20 years in our voting process. I'm sure you are familiar, right? There's a direct reporting electronic system that they're sort of trying to, inch away, but we don't want that, because the American system is also direct reporting electronic, and we're very happy to have created a system that has resolved every vulnerability of maybe a foreign vendors, things of
And
that.
it doesn't really sound very appealing to me to have a different country dealing with our voting.
I really
You know what I
appreciate that
mean?
you say that. And that's the reason we are so dedicated to providing. And that's the reason why I'm striving to reach the total population in a way that we actually feel the total population has had the opportunity to cast their vote accurately. And I'll go into that a bit more. So once we get funding, we have options. Most of the country is requiring, because they're nervous. There are foreign vendors, and they didn't follow through when there were vulnerabilities, and everybody got scared, and they wrote into act or law that we're going to do away with electronic and we want paper. But there are errors. There are flaws within that thinking, because we want to stay current, and we have to have something to match it to, right? And then we have to continue to build trust, because there are many more things to vote on aside from a presidential election. And maybe
Right.
you're not the guy interested in voting in the presidential election. That doesn't exclude you from our democracy. It just means you didn't inform yourself to make an informed choice on that, which is fine, right? But if we reach a point where we are still current, we are the superpower that we are, we're voting electronically, results are immediate, then we can bridge that down to us. People that don't necessarily have to study that level, right? People that don't necessarily have to get hung up and perseverate on a fear that they were never really informed of. Because as you can see, this whole election issue, it was not the way we were brought up. 20 years ago, we did not consider that we had to be so involved, that we had to be told every play, every move from an adversary, from ourselves, from an ally, from a politician, right? We didn't. I grew up in America, and I was very comfortable. And what I decided to inform myself with, I had the freedom to explore. And when I didn't, somebody like my father, somebody like, people that we trust, were informing themselves of that level and participating that way. So when we achieve this level of trust, we have an electronic voting system, we're voting easily, we can trust the results. Votrite has added a paper trail that's like a sixth of the material of the current ballots that these people are using, which is going to save them 90% of the cost in paper, which is equivalent to millions of dollars per election that we don't have to allocate from anybody else, because we never have to ask anybody else. It's our money in our bank, right? We just made a strategic move to leave it there. So that's the idea. Once we reach that point, paper trail, electronic, then we can bridge to the rest of our population to teach them how to make informed choice and vote, so that we're actually getting the results that we're looking for at a level like the president or House of Representatives, things of that nature. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely.
I'm a little bit all over, but I'm really excited to share that the idea is that we really want to include the total population, and we understand that people have a fear and they want to lock it up, and they think paper in my hands that I can see and view is reasonable and it's efficient. I don't care how much money I waste. I don't care how much paper I waste. But the reality is, we, all of us that are informed differently on different professional trajectories, right? We have enough information to understand how to back each other. And the reality is, we do want a little bit of excess for a rainy day or some unforeseen circumstance. So maybe a person like myself who's informed of that can provide them a solution that considers these long-term opportunities as well. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But at the same time, we're going to give them that paper trail. So if it's okay, I'd like to walk you through a quick process of how a voter would vote and what it would feel like.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
This is your
So
show.
you're going to walk up to, it's an all-in-one system. It's custom system, and you can hold it. It's about 15 pounds, and you can set it up anywhere. Every system is ADA compliant, so you don't have to set up an extra station. You don't have to wheel 1,000-pound anythings. It's really easy for storage, and the voter will register, obviously, the way the Department of State or whatever agency sees fit, and then they'll approach the system. They'll make their selections, kind of like they choose their favorite masked singer, on the TV show, or they order food. I want a cheeseburger, no cheese. It's that easy, right? So you go up and you make your selections. And when you get to a review page, you have an opportunity to change anything. And then you get to a second review page where you're actually looking at an exact replica, an exact template of what the printout looks like next to you. So not only do you have an opportunity to interact and you press the button, you don't have to press a bunch of buttons. You press one button, it takes you back to the page where the candidates are at. You make a quick decision, go back to the review page. And then when you're ready to proceed, you're watching exactly the ballot that you chose without any PII, no personally identifiable information, printing out next to it. Exactly. And you can see line by line that the electronic tally is going to be identical to the paper trail. And then you're going to watch it drop into the secured ballot box or to be placed there. So that's a major change compared to what's going on in some of these current systems, because, for example, even ones that have scanning electronic means for tallying, they're using barcodes, QR codes, or the multiple choice sort of scanning system, and all it's going to provide for you is a red or green light indicating whether or not it was accepted. But if you remember way back when, I think it's a reasonable example, we're taking multiple choice questions, tests, and we're erasing the dark circle. And then we're going back to the teacher and fighting with them about which circle was credited for our test, because if we didn't erase enough, we got the wrong answer, but we're looking at it. We don't have the same opportunity for our vote today. And that's why we need to transition to something more current that is American. And that's
right
the
now,
idea.
in terms of being able to make your selection, are the selections far enough to where you can't accidentally press it and hit the wrong candidate or something like that? Or,
So,
'cause
yes,
there's all these things with technology issues too, you know what I mean, sometimes,
I
but
know that.
a lot better than human error, I guess.
Yeah, so that's the idea. The idea is that we want to clean up any idea of human error, and we're going to do that in a very integrative approach, especially with our expertise through Votrite, through the total population, I'd say. So we're gonna tend to informing the public the right way, like the government is attempting to do. They're going to recruit at high schools, teaching poll workers. So our minds work in a way where we can follow the protocol. Same thing in the military. We need to know how to walk in a straight line, and then we need to know how to walk symmetrically. We were trained to do that. And we're from nowhere near each other. We did not grow up with each other, but we can fall in and we can do the same skills. So that
Right.
part will be taken care of that way. In terms of the unit, the disability settings that we created, the ballot settings, allow for double spacing. They allow for some color changes in the background for neurological impairment. So if they think their eyes are crossing, the color will provide them that stability.
Great.
The buttons are rather large. So you can put your entire finger pad on the button and it's going to highlight blue. It's not tiny. And then at that review page, you're reviewing it 3 times, and then you're watching a printout. And if you're unhappy with it, you can void the printout and it will not count. It'll be a continuous ballot to show the operation that you indicated until you're satisfied, right? So there will be no mistake because the voter verified it. We're just looking for that sort of convenience, transparency, and we want to stay current. And I think that's the most important thing that we have to remember in America is no matter what's going on, no matter how vulnerable we feel, no matter what type of deficit we might face or limitation that pauses us for that moment and we're stuck in fight or flight and we need a resolution, but we're not sure what to do, we still have to remember that we're ultimately a superpower. And we're not any superpower, we're the superpower. We're the superpower even during a conflict, a potential conflict, I'll say, because we still have an opportunity. I read an article that Belgium pushed out asking for, in the headline, we need the United States and China to act together to assist the world to survive what's going on in terms of environmental impact, or it's the end. And it was basically that. I'm not going to say it because it sounds a little more, to the heart, but you might be able to go research the title. It was very forward. It was very real. And it included the two of us at a very particular time when we were first being briefed that maybe we're wavy, with a Chinese. This was maybe 2 years ago, a year ago or so. But that reality must resonate with us, no matter how fearful we are, no matter how much misinformation or information we feel we have driving us a different way than we're used to. If the whole world is still requiring us, right, a connection like this, the United States is that significant, no matter what's going on, right? We are obviously not inferior to the Chinese in any way if we are compatible in this respect. And we are obviously always remembered because of our capability. And that's why we must adapt to what is going on right now. If, let's say that there's a computer glitch in our banking system, for a fact we're going to fix it in a day. And then we're just going to confirm that the money was transferred and we're going to look at it. And that's as simple as the protocol gets for electronic voting. Whatever might be going on, it could very well be insignificant. And we're going to look at it. We're going to confirm that we're pleased with the results because we can track it. We can forensically audit. Votrite offers an electronic audit. You can go back in and it has redundant memory. So it snaps a photo image of exactly what printed out, of exactly what you're looking at, and we can go back and verify. So any of these little issues that are driving us to think we no longer want to be at the same speed that a superpower is, electronic, we want to go back to paper, I would implore people to take a moment and consider that the fix may be just that easy. And if we're willing to do that with something like our money, very valuable, or permission slip, right, for our experience, then we should absolutely be willing to do that for our choice. It's a freedom of choice sort of thing, right?
Right now, so let me probably throw out a question I'm sure people would think of right off rip is, when it comes to paper trails, there's always people could throw things away. They can do things with paper, right? Now, when it comes to electronic, there's a different world of cybersecurity, right? Like we got a lot of hackers out there and a lot of people who would love to manipulate the outcome of any election, right? Because let's face it, if they want their person to win, there's ways to do things. I mean, I think that probably in the history of time, our voter confidence is at its lowest, right? Like where a lot of people aren't very confident with the voting. I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of them, right? Due to the fact that there's a lot of evidence to go and show that there's been a lot of voter, a lot of people messing with it, a lot of just a lot of problems, right? And that's a concern as a voter who goes and sits there and the nice thing about being able to do things electronically, right, is we're getting to that era in life anyways. But a lot of people don't want to go to the voting booth anymore. So
but they're not interested in the mobile capability because they're concerned with internet connectivity, right? Our hardware, our in-person system is not built with the hardware for internet capability, which means cybersecurity threats are null and void. They don't exist. Okay. Right. Because you have a poll worker moderating, and the person would have to access the single system on its individual database in some really funny way to have permission to sit there and access it during an election where everybody's on, heightened awareness. We all feel the same way and we're watching. And even if they were to compromise a system, if they feel like they could forfeit for any reason, they paid the guy, they dated the guy, they loved it, whatever it was, whatever happened, it's an individual database. It's one thing. And the solution for that would be replacing a folder. And then we can do an audit because we have redundant memory. So everything that was already done can be traced from start to finish, and it can be verified by, let me explain the audit portion. I think it's relevant now. The paper trail and the electronic model, the image that you have, has a randomly generated ID number that's not associated with the registration, right? It's just associated with the vote itself. Anybody can walk up and it happened to be that ID number that came up at the time you cast your vote, right? And what that's helpful for is for these moments where we feel something might have gone wrong. And maybe we don't want to go through every single ballot because that is unreasonable.
The ID number one, right? Yeah.
But we can spot check like we do in the military, like we do in everywhere. And we pull it out, we find an ID number, we go to the electronic system, and we have 2, maybe 3 forms of imaging memory that's going to tell us that this is valid. And it is not only valid, but it's 100% identical to what's being tallied in an electronic vote. And that is what will help us to trust, including these electronic voting systems again, because we're not ready to throw in the towel and go back to the Stone Age. We're really not. The cost is just too high, millions of dollars per election. And then we're pre-printing ballots in only 2 languages, which is not including participation, right? Because Votrite can offer any language, actually, which will allow people to come and vote in person and be part of it as long as they're eligible, right? At the same time, we can just make sure from every angle, from every argument, that we're all in agreement that the results are uncontested, okay? And by being able to look at this audit form, the electronic means, the randomly generated ID number later with 100% accuracy, there will be no reason to feel like returning to the Stone Age or to feel like we have low confidence in our democratic process, which is essential for us to remain a democracy called America and maybe not something else. It's essential. So we don't want the public to feel that they should get stuck long enough to change their mind, right? Somebody who's suffering from a symptom, maybe a mental illness, maybe a limitation of some kind, they get stuck. They go into a routine where they start to compensate to feel better. I know. I've been through it. I'm in that field for a very long time. I was in the Navy, had to recover a lot of things, and now I am. It takes time. And that's what people have to remember. They have to try things, right? The doctor always said, you got to get up and walk a little bit. If your blood pressure's high, your cholesterol's high, you got to move the body. How many of us get up and walk that day and then continue walking? Not very many. And it's the same idea when it comes to discussing our election process, where they say, well, why not just trust it? Or let's scrap it. Why not just do all paper? Either spectrum is producing a symptom that might be related to the way we're feeling. Oh, wait. I don't know. Can I handle counting after 16 hours a day, 10,000 ballots on my own? I'm not sure anybody can do that. Can any layperson walk on without training and really feel like they can satisfy that requirement? Now they're burdened. Not only were they burdened because they're listening to everything that's going on, but now they got to do that whole job by themselves without any verification that they got it right. They just have to recount it again. They have to count 20,000 ballots and waste that amount of time just to say, well, I counted and it seems like it's close. Maybe it's one off. We'll go with that number. Or we're going to encourage them to try to resolve these things one step at a time. We're removing a symptom by introducing to electronic voting. Feels good to be done quick. We're removing another symptom where it feels like we're too stressed out. It's too much of a time cost by looking at these spot checks and matching them to an audit with 100% accuracy, right? And we're removing these symptoms that make us feel like we're compromised. Somebody mentioned to me they thought that we were a third world country. I will disagree because I'm providing a solution to make sure that our perception is aligned with our reality here. And it takes a couple of steps, a couple of tries to be able to achieve that. And that's all I'm asking. And I think that's what we really are asking each other to do. But we're so burdened by misinformation that we don't really have the opportunity to say what we mean. It's so much information going on.
Especially nowadays. I mean, the misinformation out there is unbelievable. You could, and if you don't do your due diligence on actually researching the information on your own, you could definitely go down a rabbit hole if you have a one spot shot that you're kind of figuring it out. What I also see, I think I could be off here, but I want to say in America, there's around 3 trillion people or something crazy.
So many.
But take that percentage of that and how many actually vote. Right?
Yeah.
And
somewhere
how
around
many
270 million they were thinking are the turnout for us. That's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people, but that's not everybody, right? That's not
No,
everybody
it isn't.
literally putting in what their opinion is or what they want in life. I mean, and I think a lot of people have kind of put their hands up like, oh, well, we'll let everybody else vote. I don't want to vote anymore. And
Yes.
And so everybody starts throwing their hands in, and then they're shocked on the outcome of the vote, and it's like, well, but then the other part about it is, and this is where I struggle with it anymore, is when you have that lack of confidence for the voting process, right? I live in California, and and when by 8:00 they have the winner. I mean, immediately.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? They already tell you who the winner is here, but it makes you wonder how quick did that winner, because there's so many votes still out there, but it makes you wonder, how did they just close it so fast?
Exactly.
You know
You're
what I mean?
exactly right to think that, but it's a very awesome concept. And I will tell you that there's one county in California that a competitor of ours was allowed. I was pitching this approximately a decade ago, and it was turned down because it was a little early for my time, they told me. And what I was asking for was, I approached Homeland Security actually, because obviously, Nate, you know how we are, googly eyed. We didn't know any better, right? So it was back then, and I'm going, hey, you're the best. You're supposed to protect us. Is it okay if I provide you the system and then I allow you to choose off a menu to finish enhancing it for security threats, for any vulnerability that you know how to research professionally? None of us were taught how to research intelligence unless we were taught that. No layperson is seeking sources of information that are simply viable enough to trust in determining life or death decisions. It's just not the case here. And we know that for a fact because the World Wide Web is accessible by anything, right? So much so that we had to make a www2 dot whatever it might be because there were so many people in it providing all the information, not taking it down, right? So I approached these guys and I said, is it okay if I give you the system, it's ready to go, but I want you to order off a menu to customize it for your territory because then it is impenetrable. Nobody knows what those changes were per territory, right? And they go, actually, we'd rather have it all ready to go. Hold that thought. So I'm waiting, right? I'm studying for a decade. I'm underneath my father. I'm going out. I'm bridging to the total population. And then I come back and I realize that another competitor was able to do this for Los Angeles. They accepted his offer to customize the solution from scratch, ordering off a menu. A competitor that was initially foreign and came here, and he's American, so obviously I believe in neutrality. It's not about a problem. It's just considering the steps that we both took to get to the origin, to get to the result, and that's how it happened. But I'll tell you, there's been no report of fraud within that county, and because he was customizing an electronic solution, Votrite can, and he alike can provide you immediate results. The only stipulation to that one should consider in the state of California is just how large it is outside of Los Angeles, right? It's not only Los Angeles voting. But what it allows us to understand, so you're very intelligent, by the way, from my perspective, for you considering that. I mean, obviously, there's still paper going around because it's only one county that designed it that way.
Well, I just know because I came home at 7 o'clock and I filled out a piece of paper. I was like, I just saw how many people were at that. I saw how many people were at there that time too. I'm like, gosh, damn, dude, there's no way.
Right?
No way. And not even that, but there's mail-in ballots still that trickle in, and I was just blown away. I mean, I just know, but that's the part that makes I think some people where they decide they don't want to vote anymore is because they see such that outcome and they're like, gosh, what is it even a point of me wasting my time going and sitting 2 hours in a line and it didn't seem like my vote mattered. I mean, that's kind of a lot of what you hear around work and things like that,
And that's why I think that, we have to consider these solutions. Now we're looking at Los Angeles primarily. I brought it up because that solution applied to the state of California. Obviously, we could participate with our competitors. It's a huge state, right? But if we're customizing these solutions electronically, we're building it for that place based off their laws. We're going to have immediate results that we can trust. We are. But nobody has decided to implement it on a wide enough scale where we can trust that that's the protocol happening today. And you're right about that. And that's something we have to consider.
Right. So I look at it as you guys are kind of probably trying to test this more at a smaller level, right? And then grow yourself within those type of, start your, not going and boil the ocean, so to speak, right? Where you're trying to do it, gain the confidence, right? We start gaining the confidence of the communities. And then after the communities, we start going into the states, and then from state to state, I don't know how you guys plan on.
Well, we have been. So we've been achieving confidence through the communities on a local level for quite some time. Unions, universities, homeowners associations, things of that nature. And they really like the system. It's very efficient. They call us back. They appreciate it. But at this time, we are ready to go for states that aren't requiring federal certification printed, like New Jersey, like Arizona. I think there are about 11 of them that don't require it. We're ready to go. And we could provide for the 11 states because we've been designing this for 10 years, watching every step of what's going on, right? So we're designing these solutions just like they did in Los Angeles. All they did was have one meeting and they customized the solution and they have a voting system that they're happy with. That's all it takes. They didn't have to work their way up and prove themselves as a foreign success story and then work their way up through the community level to the top. They didn't have to, and nor do we. We're prepared to do that at that level. We're not asking to sweep the current competition. We're asking to be included because that design is our design, and we've been designing it for over a decade, and we're very aware of what we can provide for our country. I grew up here. We know exactly what to do for our American democracy.
So Votrite could be used for anything, right? A union could contact you and say, "Hey, listen, we need to vote about salary raises or whatever," and they give you exactly what to plug into your guys' system, and then bada bing, bada boom.
That's my favorite. Yep. So, and a lot of these, the community level, the difference is the community level has an opportunity to use internet connected voting, remote voting. Now, if one day we agree to test this, right now I see that European companies are entering the United States and pitching mobile voting right now. Open source mobile voting, open source is another idea, but on a community level, okay, right? It's okay to beta test ideas and things of that nature because we're looking for convenience and we're looking to build trust, making informed choice. We don't want to feel we're too tired to think. Therefore, we're choosing what our friend says, or we don't want to choose anymore, let somebody else choose. Because there's another population willing to choose so that you don't have your choice. It's just a reality of the way life works, right? So everybody's got to feel confident in a sense where you'll never quit. You're going to persevere no matter what adversity that you face. And the way that you do that is by learning, by taking a moment to learn without judgment, right? And you need to learn to differentiate. This is something that our population needs to do, is to differentiate internet connected voting, which could always be used for local unions, universities, any choice, even within your podcast team. If you wanted to make choices for what type of work week, what type of days off, you can vote that way. Now it's uncontested, right? Or if you're part of a business and you're selling the corporation and you have shareholders, even though you could make a choice and raise your hand, you could vote that. And now you have a printed document that satisfies an uncontested vote, right? So it's enhancing your stability of your decision at any level, at any game. But we want to be sure that we're not burning ourselves out by thinking, well, I just voted on my phone. Now all elections are rigged because my phone was obviously connected to the internet, because it's a totally different opportunity, right? And that's what's going on here. That's where that misinformation just digs in and makes us exhausted, because everybody, I bring in an in-person unit. It doesn't have any hardware. It can't connect to the internet. It can't. It's impossible, okay? And even with some of these guys, in bylaws for corporations, you legally have to vote. You have to hold a vote, even if nobody's running against each other.
This is a completely independent system, so that right there is amazing. It's within itself, and it could be audited with outside of any entity, right? I mean, so
within the system, you're auditing it. The professionals that are asking for these recounts or that, they can do spot checks, or they can do they could sit there and they can look at every line by line, which nobody offers that I know of,
right.
And you make sure that you're happy with your vote. But a big thing for us to be accepted is just for people to understand that with an in-person standalone single database, not internet connected system, nobody has to worry about cybersecurity threats, and therefore they should be more concerned with how to believe in these solutions that they want, because it will allow them some freedom of thought, some air to breathe, that they don't have to fight for that, for that outcome. It's already done. We've already provided it. That's what the professionals are doing. In terms of convenience, that's when we're considering internet connected cybersecurity. But we like that because now we get to choose what we want and think about it more often. So there are benefits to both sides, and we just have to be clear on what makes us feel vulnerable for when participating in our electronic process, and is that thought a valid thought? Is it founded, right? And if it isn't, because we're just hammered over the head with its idea of risk and security, right? A presidential election will never be given in November or very well probably the next term with internet connected voting software, right? We're not interested. Nobody's buying it right now. Nobody's putting it to use. So we don't want to burden ourselves with something that we just don't have to worry about today. Instead, we want to be considering, are we making the right choices? Are we thinking the right thoughts? Do we even know who these candidates are? We're not going to listen to our boy. We're going to go look at who these people are and what they can bring to the table, And that's what we should be focused on. And then we should be trying it. If Votrite says they can do that, put it to the test, right? Same thing with anybody else. If it's a foreign vendor, we should be vetting them. We shouldn't be harassing them anyway. But we should actually be asking, for some form of proof. But it's the same thing here, and that's the way we're going to do it. We're going to just show the unit. People are going to vote on it, and we're going to adapt any little tweak that we need to make it perfect for Americans. And the solution is there, and that's the concept.
So, is this something like you would run it like a bill? Would you try to, would you, in order for you guys to able to get this to be federally recognized, right, at the federal level? Do you guys got to run it through like a bill type thing and make it go all the way through the whole House and Senate and all that got to get voted? Or
no, I wish. The only thing for the House and Senate, this type of input would be when we're amending these outdated laws. So, for example, there's a law in Florida that is right now, the way that is read and interpreted, it is not allowing all types of current products, including the American products, to be utilized in election software. And what I mean by that is instead of it saying and slash or, right, paper ballot marking devices and slash or electronic, right, or paper trail and slash or this type of verbiage, it says or. So now people are excluding, right? They're saying we can only choose one or the other. And that's when the House of Representatives or anything like that would come in to amend law. But that has nothing to do with us being prepared to enter. We can enter for these states that require federal certification if we are cleared by the Election Assistance Commission, which is called the EAC. And what it relies on is a set of guidelines. And now they've upgraded them to a 2.0 standard. And what you're looking for, what they're looking for is they're going to rip apart the software in a way that demonstrates that every has been tested by an independent auditor, right? Somebody that is trusted because they've been testing every vendor that is there. And we have a letter providing support that we're currently approved for this testing, because you have to do a preliminary submission. You have to submit all your stuff and you have to get approved just to be invited. But then you require some form of funding, which is, just under $1 million, maybe half of that, depending on who does the job and what the turnaround is, because they charge by the day, not by the job. So that's where that's a little bit tricky. And that will open up every single state. But it is not necessary for this current election because not all states wrote it into law. Therefore, it doesn't require the Senate or anybody to make amendments to that law, if that makes sense. So it's a really easy entrance as long as we are provided that sort of foundation. And that's what we're seeking right now.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like
I lost you on the sound, but I'm around here.
You can't hear me?
I'm not sure what happened here. But I'm here.
All right, hold on. Let me make sure we
I'm gonna
hold on, let me
I'm not sure. Should I come back in? I'm not sure what happened with it.
Yeah. All right. So you gotta love technical difficulties, but we're back. But anyhow, I mean, it does sound like, it's something that I think could benefit us as in general, because I just don't feel like enough people are out voting, don't want to go out and vote anymore. And in a lot of this 2020 kind of made a lot of people want to stay home. A lot more, a lot more of those people that are scared to go out. So I feel like we're losing a lot of voters, and we got to get the confidence back in the voters one way or another, right? And we can't keep using the broken system, right? Because everybody looks at it as it's broken. So why are we going to go?
Why are they paying them? Why is it still happening that way?
Yeah,
so
exactly. I mean, and it's like it only matters every 4 years, all of a sudden, right? And then we go on, and it's like, hey guys, we had some major problems with the last presidential election in particular, where a lot of people lost a lot of trust in the voting system, and there wasn't a lot of the way things work. We don't seem to follow up with stuff, right? So people they hear what they hear, they see what they see, but they don't follow up with it and get a clear understanding of what the outcome truly ended up being or whatever. So it just puts a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, right?
Because it does, and it directs them away from us. Yeah. And that's what I don't know if you're looking around, but in New York, there's been a major change in terms of what types of businesses are opening and where those people come from. And a lot of times they're not our people. They're immigrants. They're coming from elsewhere, and they're coming from places where I wouldn't expect that, they would be so easily welcome today. Not that we ever exclude anybody, but you understand what I'm saying.
In terms just like our agriculture's getting sold off to the Chinese and stuff.
Why could that? Now, we're not interested in resolving the conflict, or we would have joined an intelligence agency, I'm sure, right? But we're interested in providing a quality life experience for our people here because we know how to do that, and nobody else seems to do that. And we just watched 20-year election process from foreign vendors who didn't know how to do that, simply put, right? So in terms of this 2020 halt, where everybody feels that they may freely express. 2020 ended that period of my life experience, and I'm unsure of where to go from there. Well, what is it you want? Or do you still want an American quality life experience? Because if so, then we're going to make moves, and we're going to cohesively make moves with us, right? And whatever that requires, the first step is to get off the bum and we start going. We have to move through tasks. And by introducing these tasks from people that care, we love each other, we love our life, we're going to set it up for our kids. I don't have to know you, and I'm always thinking about how to set up a quality life for your kid in California. Why? Because I also live there, right? And that's just the way that we are in America. So my point is, by allowing us the opportunities that we allow other people, because we know how to do that, we're going to make it easy to get rid of all this excess baggage that makes us feel like staying still at home, that makes us feel like 2020 was the end, because it's never the end for us. We're the superpower called America. I mean, everybody knows us, right? So that's really what it is. And Votrite, what I did specifically was I learned relevant tasks that are going to help our population get out of this funk, because they're going to have a very solid foundation to make informed choice. And what I mean by that in easy words is they're going to be trusted. The words out of their mouth are going to sound trustworthy, and they're going to be founded on evidence, because we're going to start being cohesive together. We're going to share the language that we're very used to. We're not going to be afraid to say anything. And it's all going to be relating to how to solve this election process so that our vote matters. And you know for a fact, we like to cast our vote. We are in a democracy, right? We're born to make a statement. We will choose a cheeseburger or a hot dog every time. We don't have a problem. Nobody else has to choose that for us. And it's going to feel the same way when we're choosing things that, are of value to our government. First step is get the weight off by helping each other, right? By helping each other see the light. Where can we go? And this is how we do that. We test, we verify, we move. Trust through verification.
Yeah, see, I think what we've done as we the people is we've basically thrown the government the keys to our vehicles and, hey, you guys go ahead and drive. You know what I mean? I think we the people got to take our stuff back and say, nah, bro, we're going to start driving. You guys are elected officials to do a job, right? And there's a lot of problems, I think, with the government, the way it's set up in terms of no term limits and the problems that no term limits create and things of that nature. But if, like I said, we the people should have a right to choose the process in which way we want to vote and things of that nature too. And instead of the government's always, this is how it is, guys. This is bam, read it all. And if you don't follow it,
if you didn't read it, oops, right? I mean, who's gonna read that?
Go read this whole thing right now. It's good Lord. They love
you're absolutely right in every way.
You need stuff like a system, right? That dumbs it down, right? We need to make it potato head style. We need it for everybody, right?
Simple, it's impenetrable that way. It's the same thing with consent. When you're going, I know a lot of people get trapped in this court idea, and we know we're informed, right? Not every time a person is blamed are they guilty, okay?
Right.
And vice versa, right? Sometimes people are that way, but we need to take a moment, and we need to actually start thinking about one another in a way that cares for each other's success cohesively. And I think that's where we're off. We're pointing the finger at the government, and the government's pointing a different finger at us, because that's an option, right? And it's the same option that we have to turn around and become autonomous, cohesive, and sufficient. And then if we become efficient at voting for the presidential election uncontested, and we're happy with it, we can begin voting instead of finding petitions all day long, digging around like little squirrels that we might not be interested in being. We can vote in our community for term limits, for different laws that we think should be codified across the United States, like Arizona's felony law for speeding 10 miles over. Any New Yorker would probably have a felony if they weren't informed of that, which I was informed of. Maybe I would never know, right? So things that, but we need the public here without looking to the government. What's your problem? Help me. Forget it for a moment. Let's do what we are doing, and let's not consider that there has to be a protocol that we develop from the ground up, from the bottom here. It's not necessarily like that. We're allowed to walk in at whatever level we have created, and then we're allowed to inform the public for how to use our services together. And once we are that team, we're going to figure out what we need from the government, which isn't as much as we are are talking to them about, right? We can vote and we can send the results to the government, and we don't need all this back and forth. We don't need any trauma from the guys that are supposed to protect us. Go focus elsewhere where you belong. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
National
and
security.
that's the other problem with putting so much faith in the government is that they've literally created a lot of division in our communities, in our own communities, where a lot of communities used to be on the same team and all for each other, right? And I'm not going to speak for other states. Here in California, this is very much how it is anymore. It's a lot of people are fuck thy neighbor, right? We used to always want to be there for our neighbors, do great things and stuff, but now it's almost like screw you. We got to get back onto a level because you never know when you're gonna need your neighbor.
Yes.
You just never know, right?
Yes, I love that you said that. Yes.
Yeah, any day, anytime, the lights could go down, the electricity could go off, and you're gonna have to rely on your neighbors, your across the street person that you just started going like this to, or whatever.
Exactly. Exactly.
We got to get to that level again, right? Like, I mean,
that's exactly what we need to do now internally, and then we have to trust to at least provide a chance to the process. Right. You know what I mean? Even if it's a little different, it's a little funky, you're not sure. You were so used to flipping them off and that it's rigged, Don't walk away. Wait, walk toward me, and we'll work together while you're working simultaneously on that. We all have to recover from what's going on, We just experienced a major trauma. Nobody in our lifetime, I don't think, has experienced something similar to a plague. We didn't know what it was, We didn't. What do we do? We're holding our kids. It's in the air. We don't. I was wearing a face mask. I was wearing
outside.
I mean, of course we had this issue, and now we're reacting.
We lost our minds for a minute. But it
doesn't define us totally, and it doesn't define us. And we got so used to it that we think we need to solidify. Now we're tough guys. Don't come at me.
Well, you know what? Loyal people, right? I'm loyal by nature, so like I'm gonna try to do the right thing by everybody. So if I'm being told this is gonna save lives, and I was all into that, right? Like, okay, oh shit, dude, this is whoa. Exactly. And then I started seeing things, and then I started really looking into things, and then I was like,
nice guy.
We might be duped. We might be getting duped. You know what I mean? Like, we're playing. These fools are over here playing chess, and we're over here playing checkers all day. We got to turn it around.
Yeah, we do, and it starts with us always. And there's nobody else to blame.
Yep.
Us. Then we're one.
The people. Yeah.
That's it. Number one.
We got to get back to that.
That's what we'll do. We're gonna do that.
I mean, America's isn't one of the most powerful, nations to live in for no reason. We have a lot of people here that have a passion for their country. Yes, there's a lot of people here that now disgrace and stuff, but we the people can't allow other people to destroy what we've built, right? And what our founding fathers have built, right? And shed blood, shed life on to build America the way it'd be a sham and a shame for us to go backwards and erase history.
I agree with you very much. And that's why we say we will offer a paper trail, but let's not write it into law to exclude us. We just spent a decade studying it for a reason. I mean, and we're the guys that would have jumped in and held you down even if we didn't make it this decade. But since we're here and we're willing to be those guys, we have to be afforded these opportunities, equal opportunity within our nation, from our perspective, right?
Yeah. If people got to start paying attention, right?
That's it.
I think we've allowed so many laws to be passed, right, that we probably couldn't even really stop tyranny without being called, a domestic terrorist or something to that nature, right? Because there's so many laws put into place that
why not?
You can't fight your government even though the law is written that the government is never to overpower the people. It's not exactly that way, and it's been set up now that if you were to go and fight that, you would be facing federal crimes. It could do a lot of time.
And we have to remember that once we've been engaged in a conflict for approximately 50 years that we hadn't directly felt unless we chose to volunteer our services, right? So comes a time 50 years later where now we're seeing a change. Who's going to be burdened by that first? No one else but our government is going to receive that information first and attempt to thwart it, which will adjust their focus. And who within the government would be primarily focused on us at that time? Maybe not our friends, right? Within reason. So although we have a lot of overwhelming evidence to support this claim that something's wrong with the government, you better get your heads checked and you better get aligned, right? But at the same time,
if we're not trusting these people,
we need
to get out and vote and get them, the ones we're not trusting, out. Put some new blood in there.
We need to trust them. We need to believe that they're our first line of defense. Go defend while we live our quality life, vice versa, right? We take our turn. And we got to get there. So people that right now, wherever we're reactive, we have to find a trajectory and move, right? I mean, we don't have to get nervous, but we certainly have to take a step every day in the direction we want. And you're totally right. That's what we're going to end up in. Trustworthy allies. That's it.
Absolutely. Before we go anywhere, let's go ahead and take a look at your guys' website. Let's go ahead and bring that up. It's kind of so people could check it out, as well as where you can go to look at it up. But kind of run us through it a little bit, and just you talked most of it up already, but it's a pretty nice little website you guys got going here.
Thank you. It gives a little information on our background and our references. So our primary name is obviously Votrite with the E in it, but we do business as Votrite, Votrite, and that website will also lead you to this. And then we have a separate website for our mobile software, which is, you can also see a drop down here, but this is the in-person system, and that's our paper trail over there. Really simple, easy to use. Look how tiny it is. So easy to store. And look how tiny that paper is. And that ink lasts for 8 years, which is far exceeds the law required to hold the documents. And I mean, if you stack that compared to all this paper that we have to store, we're going to save so much money. We're going to be able to spend it on us. And I really like that idea.
So like a company comes to you, they want you guys to come. They're like, hey, we have X amount of employees. And then you're like, okay, perfect. We'll provide you X amount of devices based off of how many employees. How do you guys kind of do that?
So explain to me one more time. It's a little low. I'm trying to sneak my head.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, so say a company comes to you, they would like to use you guys' product. Now they're like, hey, we got about X amount of employees. Do you guys base how many devices you provide based off of the number of employees, or how does that go?
So how it usually goes, so in a union or really any organization, but I can refer to that, because we've done it so many times. The union has a lot of people, but they're usually working, right? They're in a capacity, whatever it might be. Some of them have these 24-hour round-the-clock jobs. So the turnout might be approximately 50%, maybe even 30%, depending on who wants it. Homeowners associations, for example, co-ops, they must achieve attendance called quorum. Otherwise, their vote didn't count. So they need a certain population to show. And that's when internet-connected remote voting is great. But the in-person is just as fine. It depends on what you're interested in. And then we set it up so that it is convenient for where those people will be stationed during their voting period. So, for example, there was an auto shop, and they had 8 different locations because these guys were working 24 hours a day. So we held a 24-hour election. And of course, we put 2 to 4 units at each location so that depending on their shift and where they were, it was proximal and it got done. Places like Louisiana, only because I had such a focus there growing up, it was sort of like my childhood dream to be part of that state in some way. I find them so cool. So I was studying their guidelines, and in their parishes, which are small territories, kind of like our cities, our towns, they really require no more than 4 systems in a place, and that will serve that entire parish, So just to give you an idea of how people think, on a local level, you're customizing the solution to fit exactly what you need. And, on the government level, they're already establishing guidelines, and we're assuming there are many people, more people in a parish than in a union per se, right? But they still only require the 4, and that is satisfactory. So that's the way we'll gauge it, depending on, these variables that we'll consider at the time.
Oh, nice. That's outstanding. I mean, I think there's definitely a need, right? And
There's a need.
we've definitely have changed. Technology is ever so fast. I mean, it's going so fast. I keep saying 2020, but I feel like 2020 was a really big year for a lot of change, and technology is one of those as well. And we just got to start getting more with the time, right? I mean,
We adapt. Yeah. It's not a
and we
problem
do
for us. It's a
we
perception.
do.
It's a problem. You know.
Sometimes change is hard, sometimes people are
I
reluctant with
understand.
change, right? Um, because not all change is good change, but sometimes change is imminent and needed. And I think that we're getting into a world of, like I said, people are starting to have a lack of trust for the government, lack of trust for the systems that are put in place by the government, anything associated with the government, you know. And so I think that we the people have to start taking it back because don't trust them anymore. We've entrusted them a lot with our hands, and we need to start taking a little bit of that trust back and getting more involved and not and stop allowing, don't worry, we'll leave it up to them,
Who are you leaving it up to? I mean, look at
Yeah.
what's going on. Who's opening these businesses? And that's what you got to remember. You don't have to fight back. There's no fight. It's just strategy. You
Yeah.
deserve a quality life here. Now, how do you achieve that? You know?
But
And when you
not
take
only
care
that,
of
but I think it's a
yes,
generational responsibility for us to give the next generation a better place to live and,
always,
and make it a
always.
better place, right? Like let's
Right.
not let's not give our kids
Let's not degrade
kids
it and leave them where they're at.
a
Yeah.
pile of poo this high. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
But anyway, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Is there any last things you would like to say that we really did get a chance to cover?
I thought our conversation was really fun, and I think that it informed the public of a lot of concepts that are relevant. That means that they matter today. You know, these things
Right.
that you're listening to, and these tasks, they don't fall on a company called Votrite. They don't fall on a Marine Corps veteran, somebody trained to protect. They fall on every single one of us because from hearing this conversation over this past hour, I also was reminded of what to do next as a person, right outside of my business, for how to contribute to the same things that we all agree to. And and that's great. That's exactly what we want in this democracy, because the reality is we the people, meaning every single one person, right, makes up we the people, and we choose the amenities that we want. And vote rights as simple as that. It's an amenity that's going to provide you access and convenience. And then it's going to open up this world for you because you're not going to feel burdened and stuck. You're going to start choosing a lot more, and then you're going to see the world change to become that. You want the bowling alley in your town? Why not have a vote? Right? You want the school for the kid, his special needs. You want to live close by, or you want the food that the kid only eats in your town. Vote. It becomes very fun, and then we're going to live this quality life that we love because we were trained to do this from birth. And all we're experiencing here is a distorted perception because of a conflict that may have leaked in, but it should not affect us. Why? Because we are an impenetrable superpower as long as we're all moving the body and
100%.
going for it. So that's it. So I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you once again for coming on. Thank you for serving our country. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
what you're doing. And I mean, you guys are pioneering and trying to implement a change. That's always hard, right? Is that hump to get that change implemented. But you guys are on the right path. You're doing the right thing. You're an amazing person, amazing
Thank
human
you.
being. And once again, keep kicking butt and doing what you're doing.
Thank you. You too.
And thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
All right, friends and fam. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap up another great interview. Once again, I thank you guys all so much for tuning in each and every day. Please keep sharing it out. Remember, best place to check it out, any episode, interviews, nonprofits, veteran-owned businesses, is the website right below, edasusmcvet.com. Once again, that's edasusmcvet.com. And also, don't forget to check on your buddies, your friends, your family. Make sure they're doing okay. Remember, if you don't want to talk to someone, you can call 988 veterans. You can press 1. Talk to someone completely discreet. But, make sure you reach out and talk to someone before you make any, solid decisions. You know what I mean? But let's go ahead and end it here. And remember how I say, don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. Until next time, we'll see you guys.